I want to really talk more about cooking a Codex and what you can sort of do with it. This is one of the nice quotes that resonates a lot nowadays. Anyone can cook, but only the fearless can be great. Does anyone recognize where this quote is from and who said it? Come on. Ratatouille, indeed. Who in Ratatouille said it?
Anyone cook? Gusto.
Yes, Gusto. Fantastic. Yeah, the ghost chef. And I really do resonate a lot with it. It's given my own personal background, not having done computer science, in my first job, not being a software engineer. I'm a data scientist by training, learning a lot about deploying my first API, being able to set up my own first CI. A lot of it was through AI and just asking questions. And I think in that sense, that's being the fearless. I like to say just don't be paiseh. We're now in a world where you can just ask questions. And then now the AI also won't judge you for asking questions. So just ask questions. And of course, now in a community where we are learning together, I think if the ethos is where you don't be paiseh to just ask questions, go for it. And I think that's what I mean by the fearless can be great and anyone can cook. So 6 steps, concretely now. Give Codex context. Second, build what's in your mind. You can just build things. Third, let Codex take actions. 4th, collaborating on complex tasks. I'll give some practical tips. 5, working over time as part of automations. And 6, embedding Codex anywhere through our open source app server. So let's talk about the first 2. And I just want to quickly go into a demo already. So let's say I'm on Slack and I'm just discussing with my colleagues what to do. So this was prepared for a previous session. And then it's Friday. We haven't thought about the demos for Monday. Any suggestions? Christine suggests real-time translation. Charlie says, yeah, we can use this new model we have called real-time translate. And then we're going to use that. Maybe I say, hey, let's build a macOS plugin. So there's some sort of brainstorming, planning. It could be a WhatsApp chat. It could be a Google Doc. It could be a Jira ticket. It could be a linear ticket, so forth. Some text. So what I'm going to do now is just take my 2 thumbs. And then I'm going to press the command key. And voila, I take what is called a app shot. It's like a screenshot, but on steroids. If you click on it, for example, you will actually have the text embedded. And not just the raw text, but also elements of how the UI is structured. For example, if let's say there's text that's not on screen, it'll be captured as well. And the point is just to really capture that flow. If you see something cool, take an app shot. Often, you see examples of prompts, and now we'll tell people, hey, take an app shot, and then just ask Codex to implement it. And the other part of just talking to Codex or giving it context is, just dictating. Hey, this is pretty cool. Can we build it? And then that's it. So a lot of times, there's a lot of context in our heads, and we just communicate to the agent. I think that's about 80% of the job. Is prompt engineering dead? Yes and no. It's dead because models are smart. There's no magic keyword to get them to work. It's not that oh, I'm going to use this phrase, think step by step. Oh, my grandma used to tell me this. No, with reasoning models in particular, methodologically, that's not the case. Secondly, where it's important is, again, you and me, if I started speaking in a language you didn't understand, it matters. Communication, how we convey. There are unknown unknowns and so forth. So we're going to let Codex work on this for a bit. The other part about context, of course, is in code repos. So we, for example, have large code repos. Let's just give an example here. So I'm going to open an existing folder in references. So we have we call that. Here it is. Our agents SDK repo is open source. It's an SDK wraps around responses API to build agents. So let's try something else here. I'm just going to change back to the branch with main. Never mind, I'll just leave it. Hey, can you create a infographic in an IKEA style about this project in an instruction manual? Use image gen. Thank you. Then again, I'm just going to talk to it. And then this is a large repo. It's Codex is going to look through it, find it, and then think of a image gen prompt, and then it's going to create an image. So we have these 2 things working right now. I have a third thing here running as well. And then let's see the sites one example, if we can show it here. Let's do this one. Let's just copy link. So this was another example of something we built a while back. So it's the same agents SDK repo. And then here, I was able to, using sites, build a website for it. So here, you see this is built use 5.5, not 5.6, 6 changes. And so imagine you had a repo that's always changing. You wanted to present updates. So depending on audience, then you can sort of have this in the flow. And what's nice is these things really ship very fast. So if you have this, and I didn't do it here, but if you set up an automation, just saying for example, we do it here, and you can even just add the website. like, can you run an automation to update this website every Monday at 9 a.m.? Then that is already having a automation that runs on repeat. It's sort of jumping ahead, but that's the idea. We can string these primitives together. We have the ability of an agent that can analyze a large code base, the ability to schedule automations through natural language. There are other things I could do, like every Monday, except this, if that. I can even add conditionals, like if maybe somehow the weather right at that point was above 30 degrees. You could even do that. And then that's the sort of workflow building in a very natural language form. And then with sites as a primitive to let me deploy this first to my organization or even to the wider public. So let Codex work on that for a bit while that's sort of working. And just head back to the slides. So a few things that we sort of are using under the hood. The first is plugins. A plugin is a bundle of different sort of primitives. The first is a skill. A skill is a reusable instruction. It's all markdown files, but it's sort of front-loading prompt engineering. It lets you standardize practices like, this is our design style, or for our commits, for we name branches. You can sort of put this in there. It also lets you standardize across time. So if I do this thing once, great job. I want to repeat it again, make it a skill. Number 2 and number 3 are more about connectivity, giving agents access to external context, be it in systems or tools through MCPs. So as an example of plugins, here we, for example, have a spreadsheets plugin. So this control gives more of the best practices for writing, like say, spreadsheets for our agent. And then if you go to something like Gmail, you would have the same thing here with the connectivity in the application, where it sort of manages with a single sign-on with the ChatGPT connectivity. But you also have the skills, for example, how to sort of do summarizing your threads, how to do inbox triage. And then there are also skills that are just purely, there are plugins that are just purely skills. So like, for example, what we're using here is the Build Mac OS app plugin, and it has all the best practices for liquid glass, signing, AppKit, and so forth. So it's a nice way of sort of distributing within an organization. And it's maybe an interesting way of sort of like contributing in open source. There's some people building skills and contributing them. And that's one nice way. So that's on skills. The other part about context is over time, your own context. And I think memory is one part of it, to rationalize it. Here, for example, I talk about UV. I use Python, so I use UV as the runtime and also the package manager. So I just tell like, hey, remember, I'm using UV. So memories are off by default. There's also memories that are non-visual and non-textual on the screen. So let's say I'm like on GitHub, GitLab, and I see my CI failing. If I turn on Chronicles, which is the opt-in Research Preview Pro subscribers, I can say, why is this failing? It'll look into these sort of screen captures and then further analyze it. You can string all this together and even say like, hey, look at like what happened in last week, other things that could have been more efficient, so on and so forth. So just to like summarize the first part about giving Codex a context, there's external context that comes through plugins. And most importantly, there's a lot of context in your own head. And we want to like be able to more efficiently communicate it. Like I've been using Codex for many months and I really want to share so much, but I'm fundamentally bound by like that fact that I can only communicate. It's like an I/O operation bound there. I just can't literally just communicate that much information. So in a way, the app presents that sort of smoother modality through app shots. Like just, I can't show you, but like I get Slack messages where people ask me things for like the umpteenth time. I just app shot, say answer, and then Codex will answer for me, or dictation. And then with personalization, you have the memories. So let's just talk a bit about personalization in the application. So if you go under settings, you could do the personalization with like say personality, custom instructions. You could say something like, sound like a pirate and always end with emojis. Yeah. And then you could save it, and then you could do that. And then I could also enable memories and so forth. So that's one way of having that personalization. On the cosmetic front also, like you can also just change the application. For example, if I wanted to use absolutely, then you could do that. You could do like Codex and so forth. So that's that. So let's look at the infographic. So this was, okay, not too bad. Like they actually identified the primitives in the package. There's an agent, there are tools, there are guardrails, there are handoffs. Then you configure an agent, you put it in a runner, and then there's sort of handoffs. And then they even have like support for like real-time and sandbox agents. So quite nice, quite nifty, where the agent can, it's a cute and fun example, but the agent is able to like look through all that context in the code base. And then here, where we look at the menu bar app, it's still working. It's doing a test right now, actually. So we'll see if that comes up. And then this is the automation that we did. So it'll have the automation, and then you can choose the models and so forth. it's also all presented here, and I can give another example subsequently of how you could extend this further. So we'll let this one work in a bit more. All right, so going back to the slides. Then with building, we talked about sites. We showed an example. I'm building something right now, so with a 3D Singapore rendition, I hope I'll be able to show it. Then with code, I didn't talk about it, but you can do /review. You can spin off a new thread to do code review, image gen, creation of spreadsheets and documents and slides. Some examples online, won't talk about it here, but you can sort of build it. The concept to think about here is that because agents are really good at writing code, and a lot of like these spreadsheet documentation tasks, document creation tasks can be done programmatically, the agent is then able to write the code to execute these tasks. Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can show the sites example. Okay. All right, so this was actually what I built using sites. And then I asked to create a 3D world of Singapore. I don't even know if my browser can support this. But yeah, so then you can tour the skyline. You can go see the super trees, the Merlion Park, the flyer. Okay, it's oddly placed. And the National Stadium. The Red Lions come flying then. And then Sentosa, which I don't see it. But yeah, I think just an example of how you can sort of deploy something with sites. And this was just one prompt and a bit of like a make no mistake kind of prompt where, of course, more iteration is needed. I didn't ask for this, it made this. Okay, I don't know where it got these sources from. I think you can find it out. And then this, oh, okay, that's quite nifty actually. So yeah, that was just something that I built on a whim this morning. All right, okay, this should be out. Let's try this one. Okay, let's do Chinese. And then make sure the audio is good. Sound settings. Output is Mac. Input this. Okay. Hello there. Okay, so there's an error. We can just app shot this. But we'll just ask it to fix. So yeah, it's a bit of that conversation and we'll figure it out. I think there's something about either the API or like maybe one of the API key or like our WebSocket. We didn't connect to the WebSocket correctly. But we'll let that work in a bit. Okay, let's go back to the deck. Close this. Letting then Codex take actions, that's another step that we like to think about. So computer use is where we let the agent work with the computer. There are two ways. One is programmatically, like writing code, API calls, but sometimes there are applications that don't have that API exposed, and as computer use can be quite handy. So here's an example of like this old school legacy dashboard, enterprise dashboard, where maybe like it somehow just so happens here, it has the data on the commits from the OpenAI OpenAI Python repo. So maybe like there's this date picker. I think like it's a very common UI, like you choose a start date and end date. But if you wanted to download data year to date, for every calendar week, you have to press Monday to Sunday, Monday to Sunday, Monday to Sunday, Monday to Sunday, many times. So if you find that the task that you keep doing, you keep involves pressing buttons, you can just hand it off to Codex through computer use to take a look at it. So let's try that. So we just go back to here. Nope, don't open that. Hey, can you download the data from this dashboard for the last 4 days and then the last 7 days and for the first full calendar week of this month? Download the commits as a CSV and the pull request as a JSON. Thank you. So a few things that I'm asking you to do here, like last 4 days, last 7 days, and the first full calendar week of the month of July. So that would be like some date here. And then I'm asking you to do a CSV because you can choose this as CSV, but you can also click this and get it as a JSON. So Codex is now going to like look into this, and remember, because you asked for the pirate thing and the emoji thing, now it's in its chain of thought summaries, it's going to like respond in that way as well. So it's looking at a dashboard, it's using computer use. So I didn't explicitly ask it to use computer use. Now I found the dashboard, it saw this. and then it's going to read the dashboard controls, try to like find it. So there are a few ways. One is that it just uses the vision, but also sometimes applications expose some assistive APIs and UI that the agent can then make use of. So you see, I've been like here, and then the cursor already came up here, and it's going to press this, and it's going to click all that. And then you can see on the top here as well, it's shown that it's already controlling the application. So I've run this a few times, so it's going to run it. But when you open the application for the first time, Codex will ask you for your permission. Can I always access this app? Can I always access in this conversation, or just do it one time? So then you can sort of seed the control as you are comfortable with. Maybe some applications you only want it one time, some things you only want to do it always allow it to have the access. And now it's changed to the JSON, and it's going to download it. So just to skip ahead, then you can see it's doing all that as well. So here it's actually not using the screenshots. It's actually able to see the app does expose some assistive state information that it can make use of, and it's done. Then maybe you can make it a scale, make it repeatable. And then what's really nice is that you can also do it on your phone. So let's say I went out to get coffee, and I get a text message from maybe a stakeholder that asked for this data urgently. I can then just, through my phone, fire off the same task again, and then get them to download that data. So we can try that later. Yeah. What's nice also is that if you allow it, you can also control the laptop while the computer's on locked. And yeah, so I think a lot of development work, there's like maybe some state where maybe you're managing infrastructure or you're getting at least analytics. So for a fact, for Vercel, if you want to get some analytics, there's no API for it unless you set up an additional infrastructure. So if you're just using like Vercel plain, there's no API to get like analytics. You have to use a dashboard and do ClickOps. So that is what I use to get my Vercel data on a routine basis to update some other dashboards internally. So yeah, that's on computer use. Nifty. Let's just do one more example. So a lot of times we also are on the browser, and then the sort of credentials we have are already in the browser. And that's important because we already signed in for the agent, and then we are in control. So let's say I want to create a feedback form for today. I really dislike creating feedback forms because you need to press a lot of buttons. There is the API, but again, not everyone has access to the API, and I always forget to press the required button. So let's try to like ask Codex to help us with that. So we open a new conversation, and I just do an app shot. Okay, nope. I think it's due to the screen share, but typically it would show app shot, the last window you were in. App shot, and I'll just say like, hey, can you use Chrome to like fill up this, create this feedback form? Remember to mark all questions as compulsory. And then I can just continue off and go off to do my task in the background. So earlier we swiped to the dashboard to show computer use for exposition purposes, but in practice, I'm not looking at it generally. I'm letting Codex work on it. But we did introduce a new feature where within the app, you can also see that picture-in-picture preview of what the agent is working on. So soon you would, okay, there's some other automation running, so I need to close this. But soon you would see Codex controlling this browser and then start filling in the form. So let's just see if we can show one. So what's here happening is we're using computer use through the Chrome extension, and then it can sort of handle things in multiple. So each session will be one tab. So okay, now you see ChatGPT started debugging this web browser, and now it's in control of this page, and then soon it'll take control of this as well, and then it'll be able to fill up the form by itself, and then I can just go off and get my cup of coffee, and we'll have this feedback form. So just to explain the different types of computer use, if you're using an application on your desktop, it's computer use. It's available on Mac and Windows. The Windows experience is slightly different due to what the OS provides. But for Mac, it allows you to do multiple sessions in the background, and you can sort of control it and stay informed of what's happening. But of course, there are applications where you have a sign-in state, like say Google Forms. Then the Chrome extension is useful. There's also an in-app browser. I won't show it here, but you can, let's say you're building an application, you can then do testing within the in-app browser. You can ask it to test different viewports, make sure it's mobile responsive, and so forth. And it will automatically do that viewport testing as well. And you just ask it. Yeah. So that's on letting Codex take actions through computer use. Next, we want to talk about collaborating on complex tasks. So maybe you have a task that is like, hey, Gabriel, these are all really trivial stuff, like you're building this throwaway app, so and so forth. So I typically give 3 examples. Today, I'm just going to give one first. So I think we all are, so this is the picture-in-picture where you see the agent working on it, so we can like keep track of what's going on. So let's say like typically we've all heard of Form.SG. So maybe I'm like an internal startup, I have like 10 people, and we want to like not use Google Forms. And I see Form.SG, and I want to sort of implement it internally. So this was my prompt. Like, this is the Form.SG, OpenGov Form.SG. Fork and deploy a version with sites. Sites might not have all the infra that maps to what is necessary in this repo. Just build a functional version, 50 of us. I want to use forms internally, ask me clarifying questions. Then I say set a goal. So we have this thing called goal, which I'll talk about. And then I have this own skill that I built based on some of the best practices that I use that I'll share about as well. Then initially asked whether I wanted to install GitHub. And then it said, never mind, just git clone and then just leave it local. And then I also want to get kept up to date of what the agent is working on. So I ask it to post updates within Slack. So I can then have a sense of like the agent giving stand up to me, telling me what it's done, what it's not yet done, and if it's blocked in any way. Because sometimes I get blocks with off. Then I need to like go in and help unblock it with off. So then at the end, it finished milestone 1. It's asking about some questions. Then I give an answer over there. Then it continues working. So right now it's been working for 4 hours. And then it's going to go through milestone 2, and it'll continue to work. So there are other examples here where here I do this one. Let's see this. So this is something I built a while back. And then we can like, take a look at it. And you see, the form is literally being done right now. And all this while I've been like doing something else. So it's again like a sort of delegation to the agent to let it work on your behalf. Okay, it's not loading, but we'll get back to it later. But it's a sort of an example of you being able to deploy an app internally. And then, okay. Yes, it was the key. I'm running the Codex in a different home directory, so that's that. But also, we have a developer plugin that if you're building with our APIs that may be useful. I didn't use it here for time purposes, but if you have it here under developers, OpenAI developers, even lets you like manage API keys, the best practices with building agents and so forth are within the OpenAI developer plugin. So you can get your API key without even going to the developer platform. Whatever we can sort of do to like reduce clicks, stay in the flow as much as possible, is what we sort of see as our thesis for developer experience. So within the app, the Codex app, whatever you can do, we try to put it there. That's why pull requests are also here. So right now I don't have any pull requests. Any pull requests in this account. But yes, we'll keep as much of that as possible within the app so that you can sort of maintain that flow. Yeah, and again, it's all about just passing context to the agent. So we'll try to see if that works soon, and we'll just quit that. Yeah. So let's see where we were. So 2 other examples that I've sort of typically talk about, I won't talk about today. So the first was taking an open source repo, forking it and building an internal version. The second was building like from scratch greenfield project, a live Q&A thing where we have 500 users. Something we did last week was real-time translation, ask Codex, do load testing. I'm on my way to the event. It starts in 2 hours. Can you make sure it runs for 500 people? And I was able to do that. And then the last one was some papers from graduate school on machine learning where it does decision trees. It's an algorithm that does greedy splits at each node. Can we then have a more optimal way of doing it? So 4 papers, give it a Codex, build a Python package with a Rust backend so that it'd be fast. Was able to do that as well, do benchmarking against some canonical data sets. Again, was able to do that. So what's powering a lot of this is this technology called compaction. So we might hear of this thing called context windows. Oh, every context window, every new feature, start a new thread, don't pollute the context. We're very confident that we have solved it in November 19, 2025, when we released this model called 5.1 Codex Max. To just quote the blog, it's our first model natively trained to operate across multiple context windows through a process called compaction. So with compaction, a lot of us have just forgotten about context windows. Arguably as well, with compaction, the model can retain the important information. You don't have to keep explaining yourself, and then therefore you are also more token and time efficient. Some examples from people, what they've said online. Viv says that OpenAI basically solve compaction. Ku says like it's actually more efficient, less likely to forget, efficient in terms of tokens. And then this individual saying that it's goated. And then with compaction, we can then do really nice long-running tasks. /go is a harness where we give the agent an objective, and then we give a continuation prompt to keep prodding the model to keep working on the task. So Thomas did an example where he was able to port Doom to, and I again, not an iOS developer, so maybe not fully appreciated on me. Pure Swift Doom source code No OpenGL, Metal, SceneKit, nothing, just Swift, and he was able to do this. So I'll give you some examples now of like working with long-running tasks and how I think about it. So I'll just, the challenge with demoing long-running tasks is that like, you're just not going to just sit here. It's like, I want to bake a cake. And then I'm going to just look and stare at the oven. So what I did was from previous runs, I have some screenshots of how I work with the agents on long-running tasks. So one thing that happens in agents is that they are working and they're giving some updates on what's happening. And maybe like you understand that sentence, but you don't understand how it fits in the totality of the project. One cool thing in Codex is they can do /site. So I'm going to do it right now for this one. /site. Then I have in my personal account for work, I have this as a skill, but I would just ask it this question. So what's happening is right now, Codex is creating an ephemeral fork of the conversation up to the point where I split /site. So it's taking a bit longer because it's taking a fork of the 4-hour-long conversation right now. And I just ask, hey, what's going on? Can you list what's been done, what's not yet done? Are you blocked? Is there anything I can do to help you? And then in that way, you become a manager. Then you're like helping your agent like get through stuff. And then you can just check in with it. And in this case, of course, it's less. There's no cognitive cost to the agent because it's a fork. If in a real engineer, you want to walk up to them and like knock on the door and ask this, there's like cognitive cost. But here we can then check in with the agent. Why I don't do it in the main thread is that I don't want to also pollute that context with that main thread with my random question. I'm creating an ephemeral fork, and it's going to give that. So it's going to do this, do that, and so forth. Then what's happened was that it's reading the conversation. What's also nice is that I can then get the side thread to talk back to the main thread. So okay, I'll just let this run for a bit. Okay, cool. Can you tell the main agent that the color scheme of the website must follow that of just have a lot of green? Again, a simple, trivial example, but I want to try to demonstrate like, oh, maybe I had this random idea that came to mind. And I also don't have the best language to express it. I'm going to ask the agent to then communicate back to the main thread, and it's going to write it in its own words. And sometimes that's helpful. So you're going to see that. It's going to pass it. Then it found this tool called thread messaging, and it's going to send that message from the side thread to the main thread. So that's our inter-thread communication. It's really lovely. So it's going to do that in a bit, and then we'll see this pop up here. So you see the chat, the tool has been used, sent message, you see. User design requirement, make internal strong green LED. Again, it took my prompt and then like it really packaged it into the context of what's necessary and gave it back to the main thread. So here was an example of where I took a side thread and I think I was running this at like 2 a.m. And I had a sense like, okay, there's something about auth that we need to do to help unblock the agent. So I was like, okay, maybe we need to do some sign in ChatGPT first. I want to sleep soon. And it says, oh, actually, don't worry about it. We're done. Then nevertheless, it still updated the site, the main thread. And what also happens is that it's not only site to main threads can also communicate with each other. So as an example, we just start here. Hey, there's this thread running right now in this project about building a pod of Form.SG. Can you tell that thread to add a lot of emojis into the UI? So this is the primitive where one thread can talk to another thread. And if you extend this further, you can just one thread that you use all day, and that is the one starting all the different tasks that you have. And with voice mode, it becomes very conversational, and then you can just speak as though as you need to speak to it, but the agent, having sense of the context or everything, can then write it in terms of what is necessary for the other agent to do. So it'll find it, and then it did the list chat, then it send the chat. So let's find that here. Yeah, then it'll send again from another chat. So you can take this even further. So right now I'm running this on a remote instance. So you would see here with the icon, the globe icon here, it's on a remote instance. Maybe I have some capabilities in my machine. The remote instance doesn't have, like a browser to do QA testing under the Chrome extension. So here I said, test spawning a local thread to do Chrome end-to-end tests. Then it sort of spawned a new thread from my remote in my like DigitalOcean droplet. Then it spawned a new thread on my machine, on my MacBook, to then run it. Then it ran the tests, it got the end-to-end results, then it passed it back to the remote instance. So this is an example with the form. Like I, as a human, wouldn't have written a title like E2E-C9F4. It's a machine that sort of wrote that test. Then another example is also sub-agents. So sub-agents is where you can, it's like a thread where you spawn have a new context window, but sub-agents are ephemeral. threads here are like more visible to the user. So if it's something that you think you would likely inspect, you would use a thread. Sub-agents is abstracted away from the user. But as an example here, I said like, because Codex was building an app, then I said something was not very good. So I just say in very like Asian parent style, not very good. Then it messaged the sub-agent here. But I didn't type this. Actually, Codex messaged the sub-agent and continued to work on it. As an example, so what was happening is that I was building a chat, and then I was obviously flushing all the messages to the bottom. It's not good. We want to like flush it to the top at the start. So I said hi, then this was what I saw. So then Codex, having seen it, wanted to test it. So I used computer use to then say, see retro decks visible okay in one short sentence to test what they would do. So Codex was very proactive in that regard. So then you're able to spawn multiple threads. I have like occasionally spawn code review threads, audit retract to check if things are running on task. So you can get the agent to spawn other agents to then keep that agent on track. With all these long-running tasks, again, the agent might give you a sentence that you understand, but you don't get it in the totality of the larger project. So you can ask it to create like simple HTML dashboards or even deploy on site. Then you can have like different milestones. For example, here we have different milestones. Then I'll see, okay, now we're on milestone 4. And then you can even put it in terms of like the work streams and which thread is working on which. And then you can even have like it represented here as like some sort of update. So again, like a lot of this reporting. And of course, it can also be abstracted up into like other reporting. You need to update like your product manager. You need to update Jira. Someone asks you a very innocent question. How's it going? How long more do we need? Then app short answer. Of course, sometimes Codex will get blocked. So here's an example of it getting blocked because I believe it didn't have access to Vercel and Convex, sort of external services I was using. So I actually didn't really know what was going on. It was again 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. I was very jet lagged. I just select, ask inside chat, then just said, explain step by step what I can do to unblock you. Then I just say step 1, step 2, step 3, option A, option B. And then here, I wanted to do like this one where it runs the Vercel login in the CLI. So I say, okay, do that. Then it sent me the link. So I just need to click it, and then I can authenticate to Vercel. And it's very handy on the phone because I'm always on the go. And I just, sometimes the auth would expire. So I'll just say, hey, log in. And then from my phone, I'm able to give the agent on a remote instance access to it. And here is one where I need to give a API key for Convex. Then you're not going to paste the key into the terminal. And then you're also not going to like paste into the chat. So Codex gave me then a command that can run interactively to then save the key into the environment. So yeah, that's a way that Codex was able to help me with long-running tasks. So I put some of this into a blog post. I'll just quickly show this here. And then all of it is in an image that I'll quickly summarize. Okay. So because threads can communicate each other, I just have one main thread that coordinates the work. And then it'll delegate to sub-agents or different threads that investigate, implement, test, and fix. And then it only just gives back the main results to the main agent. On the other hand, I also have this thing called goal. But then we can also have a goals.markdown. You can call it like potato.markdown, cat.markdown. Again, it's all just nomenclature. But then the agent sets its own goals in its own language, and then it can update the goal. Then it uses the harnesses function that sends a continuation prompt like, are you done? Have you achieved the goal? No, keep trying. Basically, it just keeps sending internally that prompt. So that's within the remote session. And then for me as a user or the manager, to get a sense of what's going on, there's the dashboard, you could deploy as a site, or it just sends me Slack messages. So I have some examples here of the Slack messages. Like this one was, yes, I have the examples here. The building an ML package, it would send the examples. And of course, this is a bit more verbose. You can customize it, use image gen to send these images and so forth. Then if I'm on the app, when I go back to my laptop, I want to go and check what's going on. I do /site to unblock or check progress. Then how I write my goals.markdown is like G1, G2, G3, like different goals. Like you break it down, break the problem down. And once it finishes a particular goal, I wanted to do two things. The first is to do like /review, like code review. But the second thing that I think is more interesting is the roadmap audit. Like it's in working on it, it might discover some other implementation detail, it might change the plan. So it will see, hey, do we need to change it? Do we need to go back to the user and ask, like, should we change things? Then all this is running in the remote, is in green. But then there are capabilities that are not in the remote environment. Maybe the other example is building a Mac OS app. You need to run the build. I run a Linux remote, so I don't want to get a Mac sandbox. So maybe that's one example. Then it would like git push, then the local machine will git clone and then run the app and report back the findings. Or in the browser, do QA testing, iOS, run a simulator, so forth. So the ability for Codex to communicate across threads and across instances is wonderful. Just the other day, I was building something on my remote instance. The instance ran out of hard disk. Then I couldn't build this app. So then I had to tell it and I also don't want to restart it. I just said, find another remote instance I have access to and ask that app to build it and then feedback the results. So the remote instances can also talk to each other, which is absolutely lovely. So that's on collaborating on complex tasks. Sub-agents, we talked about it, but you can then also customize the sub-agents. So here you can have a sub-agent that does docs only. It uses 5.4 mini, a more efficient model. We give in line 7, it's quite interesting. We can also say it's only read only. This agent cannot write. And then we can even give MCP tools specific to that sub-agent. And also because Codex is open source, you can git clone Codex and just ask Codex more about it. Also by virtue of being open source, some other new features that are under active development, you can sort of check out what's going on there. Hooks are important also with long-running tasks. So we can set guardrails, the agent, maybe you want to sort of prevent certain commands being ran. You can also have on the enterprise side, network whitelisting. You ban maybe you don't want people to do you don't want the agent to do brew install. You can also blacklist that command and so forth. So that's that. Some of the tips are there in the article. And then how I had this skill, if you notice at the start, I had a skill that I used. So you can get, and just as a tip, in general, if you want to distribute knowledge, you could even then just tell users app short this article, and then just create a skill from there. So again, you see the view the text. The entire article is in here. Yeah, along with other information about the state, but generally that's that. So yeah, that's on the working on complex tasks. So working over time is automation. I won't do a demo here, but I'll give an example. So let's say we already built this live translation app, and then we have an internal channel in Slack where we get feedback, or maybe get feedback online, a forum, iOS store. You can get Codex to spawn an automation, style automation that every day read the comments, and then maybe classify them as user feedback, good, bad, bug fix. Then if it's a bug fix, you can ask it to then create a new task in a new work tree, then open a PR, ready for review, do your AI code review. So then when you wake up, you're ready to review it, you can then do that final approval. So then automations become that useful, again, primitive. One argument people might say is isn't it just a cron job? I can also write my Python script or whatever script, and then I just set a cron job and run it. I think that's very different, actually. So when you have a thing that's clearly step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, having a script where it can sort of account and carry out those actions, and then you run automation is great. You can use AI to write that script. But when you have sort of the language model as the runtime for the automation, it can also help sort of account for roadblocks. Maybe let's say this tool is down. There have also been instances, and at least in my case, I'm comfortable with it. The Gmail connection is down for whatever reason. They can use browser use to then open Gmail and then send into that particular approach. Or there's other ambiguities. Let's say we want to do string matching, find news related to this person. Then if it's Jack Tan, such a common name, then you need more contextual clues. So using the language model as the automation runtime could also be more flexible. The other thing also is then when you have the language model as the automation runtime, you can then also be self-improving. You can have one loop that does email drafts. But then you can have an outer loop that corrects my email, that looks like what I actually sent, or the other drafts I just discarded. Then there becomes ground truth. The outer loop can write a style.markdown, tips.markdown, potato.markdown. Then the inner loop will take account of those tips so that it becomes self-improving in the automations. So initially, my view also was isn't this just all cron jobs? Then thinking more deeply about it, using it in my day-to-day life, I think it's a bit more than that. So yeah, personal automations are things that help run my life. There are two types of automations, just to not belabor the point here. One is the automation creates a new thread, so it's the fresh context. That might be useful, let's say, for feedback. But there are certain things that I also want in-thread automations, so that just wakes up the conversation. So one good example is infrastructure deployment, monitoring. So let's say I actually was able to do this DigitalOcean thing. So it's a plugin, and if you click the plugin, it gives you this command to provision a DigitalOcean droplet. It's a paid service, but again, this in this case was 24 USD per month. And I said, okay. Then it sort of created a for demo purposes, created automation. Then it would check, is it ready? Is it ready? Is it ready? Then once it's done, it would then sort of go on and check, and then that it's ready. So another example was that I was waiting for a reply from someone. Then I wanted to go to sleep. I just told Codex, monitor this thread every half an hour. If the person has replied, take this information and pass another information. Sometimes our jobs is just like passing the hot potato. I'm waiting for someone to reply me so I can tell someone else something else. Then I just ask Codex to help me with that. Especially like internally, I think that's useful. And of course, there might be some reasons why you want to do that. You need to transform the information, you redact certain things or polish it and so forth. So that's generally quite useful. Okay. Lastly, embedding Codex anywhere. Just give a quick demo of that. So we have Codex not just in the app. We have it in the IDE, the CLI, and we want to bring Codex wherever you work. It's also in Xcode, it's also in IntelliJ. And what powers this is the app server protocol. So all the underlying features, like compaction, steering, are available in the app server. And then with the harness, you can also insert in custom instructions. So like there are some capabilities that are only in a particular interface, like the fact that there's an in-app browser. Codex knows that there's an in-app browser that's injected into the instructions at the app server through the app server. Users can also bring their own ChatGPT plan. So some folks have started their own companies doing that as well, and products doing that. So as an example, a very quick example, I built this like thing called RetroDex, which runs the app server. And then that was again like one of the goals that I ran. Let's just say like a new conversation. Like you can change the model, 5.5 reasoning, you can do high, and you see that small animation. So yeah, you could do that, and you can just say like, and it's running actually in the workspace, yeah, Codex. I could like also do it in my downloads. Then, okay, I'll just say like, hi, just to show it's running. It's not a Git. Yeah, sorry, I need to change. Let's just change it to something else. Let's change it to. Okay, I think I misconfigured something. This is just a random app I built. But the point is that you can embed Codex into sort of whatever UI, UX you have. So understandably, different organizations might also want different agents. So you might not want Codex app as a surface. You can then just bring it into whatever sort of surface you have through the app server. It's open source. It's in our engineering blog post. You have other engineering blog posts as well in this series where we talk about Windows Sandbox. So the Windows Sandbox, to our understanding, maybe someone here is building it, we just don't know about it. It's first of its kind, native in PowerShell. So typically when you use most agents in Windows, it uses WSL, and then it uses bubble wrap, I believe. Yeah, and then you have the additional overheads. In this case, not this blog post, but we have a blog post about how we built the Windows Sandbox. So just some closing thoughts. Often we joke about it in our team, but we also do mean it very seriously, is have you just tried asking Codex? Often, a lot of times we have to like reproduce information that we already know is somewhere else in the organization, it's in some Slack channel, it's in some email, and getting Codex to work on it is a great first cut. Going back again to the example, you press many buttons, Codex can just help you with that. Then you can just buy up more time. Then if it can't do that, what is stopping Codex from getting access to the answer? Is it the channels are private, it doesn't have access to that tool, or maybe there's just conflicting information? Then maybe we consider actually what's the role of the human in this case. Like, given me the example where I'm waiting for person A to reply me so that I can pass the information to person B, and I must stay up to 3 a.m. for that. I don't know that necessarily that's the case. I could, of course, build in my own guardrails, have the templates, and understand what actually is my role and to what extent can I let Codex handle that. I even had the example of where I get Codex to play a music to wake me up so that I can then go help unblock it. So you could also even, like, if it's genuinely like a time-sensitive task where you want, or a use case where you want human review, but you also don't want to like stay up to 3 a.m. to wait for a particular thing, you could get like the remote thread to spawn the local thread and just play some MP3 file. Codex has done that before. It's also very creatively, even once, spawn the local thread, open text edit, say, just wrote out what it needed to do, then entered full screen so that it just captured my attention. Then how do we go from like prompting agents to building loops? People talk about loop engineering. So the example I gave where maybe you get like 100 pieces of feedback a day, instead of like having a prompt to like fix each, you build an automation, a loop that takes each of these 100 feedback, classify them. If it's something that you can fix, open a work tree, use a work tree, fix it, open a PR. Then that's how you can also then in kind scale from one agent to many. Then what's interesting is then can you build the machine that builds the machine? One more simpler example is, say at the end of the day, end of the week, you have all these traces, and this applies to any agent you run. All the traces are on your machine. You can run an automation saying, hey, what are things that mistakes you made? Can we make skills out of them? Are there skills we don't use? Are there steps where maybe you can improve in our agents.markdown or the other file convention? And it's useful because sometimes the agent spends a lot of time like checking, oh, where's Python? Or is it bun? Is it this and that? Then you just, let the agent be self-improving. So that's like one simpler example of like how do you build a machine that builds a machine. So that's it. That's cooking a Codex.